Hey everyone, just want to say welcome. This is a really, really exciting time. I am sitting here in the beautiful brand new Gracie Barra campus, sitting with two incredible individuals, Professor Dave Weber and Professor Flavio Almeida. Thank you guys for being here. This is really, really awesome, brand new stuff. And, you know, the purpose of this podcast, this kind of session, is to really discuss and get to know the professors a little bit more for those that might not know some of their background and then, you know, how they came into jiu-jitsu, how they came into Gracie Barra, but also not just talking about them as within the organization of Gracie Barra, but also them as school owners, as students, as individuals who opened up schools in brand new territories, went through a lot of the different challenges and struggles of growing and scaling successful, thriving Gracie Barra academies. So I'm really excited to dive into this. This is really cool stuff. So just want to say thank you and welcome.
Thanks, Mike.
Yeah.
Happy to be here, man. This is a dream coming true. So thanks for putting it together.
Yeah.
Thanks for having us, Professor Mike. Awesome to be here with you, man. Let's go.
Cool. So, yeah, I just want to first start off and say, right, like we're sitting in this brand new studio in this brand new GB campus. So I'd love to just know what was the thing that prompted doing this? What was kind of some of the inspiration behind it? And what are some of the goals with having this, you know, North American campus?
Go ahead. Well, a lot of this inspiration came from you, Professor Flavio, but I'll do my best to capture some of that inspiration. Well, I'll start by saying this. Before the official GB campus came to be, this office is where the vast majority of the Gracie Barra entities within North America do their day-to-day work, right? So we're here at least 3 or 4 days a week doing everything that we can day in and day out to serve our community of Gracie Barra school owners. The entities all exist to serve and to support our community. So that's what we've been doing for multiple years. But it became apparent to us in the last few years that we needed to get back to real engagement with our community. Obviously, we do so much behind the scenes with tools and resources and the things that we can do to provide resources for our community to be as successful as possible. But there's something missing in that, right? And that's that in-person engagement. It's the ability to be around others, align, connect, and nurture relationships that are so important to what we do within this organization. So we saw that an office could become a campus where we're not only working in our day-to-day operations to do all the things that we need to do on the behalf of our Gracie Barra community, but as a place where now we can actually host school owners, their staff teams, whatever it makes sense to do at a certain time, so that we can engage with them, form stronger relationships with them, align, connect, and of course, go over specific topics or meetings or whatever we need to do in order to make that relationship stronger, right? So now we have a place that is a second home for our community, where they can come here to Arizona and spend time with the entity teams, spend time on the mats, and really connect and hopefully level up in a way that they can bring some really practical tools back to their schools to make them even better.
I particularly like coming here because it's nice and warm as well, you know, and like It's
You're
a
not
beautiful,
gonna like it here in July.
no, no, I know. It's a beautiful campus though. But one of the things I remember you saying, Professor Flavio, is kind of going back to what it was like originally when you guys first came here to the US. And I'd love to hear a little bit from you of like, what were some of the things you remember the most during that time where everything was kind of under one roof? You guys were able to train together, think, brainstorm together, build together. What was that like back then when you guys were first coming in and had that, that space, that physical space?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought it up because that was the inspiration to do this. When Master Carlos moved the headquarters from Baja to Irvine, California, he pulled together a very special group of people. Eventually, the Gracie Barra entities that we know now as the 5 entities: GB Wear, GB Jiu Jitsu, GB Online, GB Institute, and GB Events. We had the seeds of that there, and it was very special because it was all happening at one address, one location. California, Orange County was kind of like the initial hub of Gracie Barra schools because a lot of the professors that came to train for tournaments or they were already living in the area, they naturally gravitated to that address. So the first experience we had with what we now understand the Gracie Barra ecosystem happened there. And it was very important, and still is, to be able to have this physical connection that you're actually spending time together. I think a lot of the innovation, the breakthrough ideas came from the diversity of people that were like-minded, and yet they had different perspectives and different ideas. And that became this place where all of these ideas were flowing and a lot of the breakthroughs were coming from that. It happens with every organization, as you grow, and especially if you grow at a very fast pace. It's awesome. There's a lot of great things that come with growth. But one of the things that typically gets sacrificed is connection, And for a brand that is built on, first and foremost, on our core value of brotherhood, that is incoherent, to say the least. So over the years, we've been constantly building platforms that will allow us to build stronger connections amongst our staff, and certainly between the Gracie Barra corporate entities and each one of our school owners. The World Summit, for example, came from that. But the campus then becomes this larger scale replica of what Lake Forest and then Irvine were once. And we had that again. We had first at the Lake Forest school and then the Irvine headquarters. People see there's 3 mat areas there. The third mat area on top, the small one, was where all of the entity offices were. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. And then eventually we rented an office outside of the headquarters in Irvine. So we've been constantly looking for ways to rebuild and go back to one thing that we feel like it's very important, which is these physical places of connection. And even the name campus, I think was a very good name because a campus, inspires connection, inspires learning, inspires innovation, which I think is exactly what this place is meant to be.
What I can say as a school owner, and anytime I've been able to get together with you guys and other school owners, and for the summits, for LeaderCon, I walk away so energized. I have so much conviction behind what I need to do. I also just feel like I'm not alone, like just being able to share and connect with people and do all those things. I think a lot of us, especially post-pandemic, right, started losing that. So I don't think this could come at a better time in terms of really making this conscious effort to gather in person again.
I think you're touching on something very important, Mike. Professor Flavio was just talking about the type of growth that we had, and because of that, we have to, of course, incorporate technology in the way that we meet with our community. But I'm still a big believer, especially post-pandemic, that there needs to be a concerted effort for us to have in-person touch points, that real connection and alignment that happens only through that type of experience, right? That's why I love so much the World Summits, the GB World Summits. That's why I had such a wonderful experience with the LeaderCon that we had. We're very excited to hit the road in a few weeks to go to Florida, start unveiling regional LeaderCons. And then, of course, the GB campus here where folks can come here to Arizona and enjoy this, not just beautiful facility, but, this in-person connection that we can form here, right? So,
yeah. And like, it's also what we do, like in terms of Brazilian Jiu Jitsu,
Right.
it's, and we know it's being in person. We're pack animals, we're humans. We need connection. We need to be able, it's one of those things that hopefully we don't lose. Although unfortunately, the way a lot of things are going in the world is more isolation. And so, you think of that from a personal perspective and why jiu-jitsu is such a powerful thing overall. There's a lot of other things, right? But from a business perspective, being able to be in person is almost just as important as anything else. So really exciting. And I can't wait to see more and more of these events and these in-person events at the campus and around the country. But if you guys don't mind, I want to kind of shift over to a little bit more about your stories, about how you got to this point and how you got started in jiu-jitsu. And, really one thing I think not as many people, not necessarily realize, but don't think about it as much, is you've been school owners for a very long time and you've done a lot of really amazing things. I'm sure you've, in your travels and in your growth, have come on a lot of challenges and obstacles that we all probably deal with, and maybe at a larger scale. So I'd love to, just get a little bit of a background personally, what got you into jiu-jitsu, how you started, and Professor Flavio, I'm going to ask you too. I know your story goes way back as well. So, but Professor Dave,
so you want to start with me? Okay,
I do.
let's
Yeah,
go.
I do. Yeah. So tell me what got you into jiu-jitsu?
So I assume you don't want me to start at birth, right?
No, it's like we're going to be here till like next week if we do that.
Oh, okay,
right?
I'll limit the history here. So I grew up in Orange County, California, and one of the main activities that I did as a child was wrestling, right? So I had no one was picking me for the basketball team.
No,
They took one look at me and they said,
fair, Dave.
They looked at me and said, "Yeah, you're a wrestler."
Right.
Yeah, so there wasn't a lot of options.
Low center of gravity too.
Yeah. So, so I of course I started with that grappling art, right? I had a love for that. I eventually went on to university at USC in Los Angeles. My wrestling had to stop at one point because of a significant knee injury. So I went through university just like everybody else and graduated in the year 2000. But I felt like I was missing something. I still longed to be on mats and stay competitive. And like you had mentioned before, we're pack animals, right? You're always looking for a community to be a part of. So I originally started jiu-jitsu in 2003 with a gentleman that came up from Brazil, has a Gracie Barra lineage, and that was in Culver City in the Los Angeles area. I moved back down to Orange County a few years later and wanted to continue my jiu-jitsu journey. And lucky me, that was just when Gracie Barra was establishing its presence in Orange County, California, right? So I found Gracie Barra, the original HQ in Lake Forest, and that's where I met Professor Flavio. At that time, it was amazing, right? Master Carlos was there, Professor Marcio was there, Professor Marca was there, Professor Andre. There was a lot of folks there. Professor Elias signed me up, and I started taking classes there in Lake Forest. And I don't even remember exactly how it happened, but I started, obviously I found some type of connection to Professor Flavio because at one point I said, Professor Flavio, I want to do private lessons with you. So we started doing privates. We started obviously making a closer connection through that because it's not just a class, it's that one-on-one experience. And it's not just about jiu-jitsu. You start having conversations and you start getting to know someone at a deeper level. And then in 2007, is that when you embarked on GB San Clemente? 2008.
Yeah, the school opened in February of 2008, yeah.
Yeah, So Professor Flavio, alongside Professor Felipe Gedges, decided that it was time to spread the wings, and Professor Flavio began his journey as a school owner on his own in San Clemente, California. And I said to myself, I can stay here in Lake Forest, which was a great option. I loved the experience there, but I felt this connection with Professor Flavio. So then I went and was one of the original students in San Clemente. And a lot of things happen along the way, of course, over the years, but eventually I get to the point that I'm awarded my black belt by Professor Flavio in 2014. And more conversations, more connection lead us to our original partnership in Dana Point, California, where Professor Flavio has started his second school. So we became eventually 50-50 partners in the Dana Point school. And through that, without going into too much detail, I know we're going to be talking about the Arizona project more later. That's where the inspiration came to go big.
Go big or go home.
Go big. And level up, as we've been saying a lot recently. And it's led to so many other things. And now I am the Chief Operating Officer of Gracie Barra Jiu Jitsu North America, which is one of the big honor and privileges of my life. It's a beyond my family and closest friends. It's the blessing of a lifetime, and super excited about what the future holds for me personally and for this organization.
And real quick, this wasn't like your first soiree with franchising either, right? You were a franchisee before, like you had a little bit of experience already before that.
Yeah, actually, I was always a Gracie Barra student, but I wasn't. We all start as students and then we evolve into something within Gracie Barra later. But I was working with an organization called LA Boxing, which was a franchise company, which then was bought out by the UFC. Mm-hmm. So I owned a few UFC gyms in Huntington Beach, California, and Aliso Viejo, California. Nice. Cool.
Cool. So if we can shift over to you, Professor Flavio. So I know, a lot of people know you as obviously Gracie Barra and have been a part of the organization for a really long time, but I don't know if everybody knows, kind of, we don't have to get into all the deals again. We'll be here for 3 weeks as well, like going into the history, but would love to hear a little bit about what got you into jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, my story is a pretty typical story. I started martial arts because of bullying. We started karate, my brother and I. And then Ricardo switched to jiu-jitsu about a year and a half later. And I switched about a year after him. And it was the early 90s in Brazil. So obviously the UFC was starting to make noise around the world. And in Brazil, we had this massive sense of pride in Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. We just call it Jiu-Jitsu back then because there was no need for a distinction. And then competitive Jiu-Jitsu was also on its kind of like its not early stages, but at a moment of transition to become more professional. The first Brazilian National Championships happened in 1995. Yeah, so everything is happening at that moment, right? So when I look back in time, that's the reason why I became so excited about the competitive side of Jiu-Jitsu in my early years was obviously because it was brewing in Barra da Tijuca at that point in time. So anyways, my Jiu-Jitsu takes off from there. And my brother and I training together and, and competing and making friends. And then eventually Ricardo moves to the United States in 1996 or 7. So I stay in Brazil. I go to college, got my black belt, and was competing at the black belt level for a while. Eventually finished my degree, and I started my business career in Brazil. And Ricardo was here. He built his career in the UFC at Pride. So we stayed very involved in the competitive side of Jiu-Jitsu as a family. And then Ricardo opens his first school. And he does an incredible job making it a professional Jiu-Jitsu school. So it was eye-opening to me. I remember coming to see him on my vacation that I have from my job. And I was like, oh, so it's actually possible to make a living from Jiu-Jitsu. That's quite a remarkable thing in the early 2000s, that you could actually be a Jiu-Jitsu instructor and, make a decent life for yourself and be able to provide for your family. So once he opened up that possibility for me, I got really excited about moving to the United States. So eventually I make my move with his support in 2006. In 2007, Master Carlos and Professor Marcio invited me to go be the program director at HQ. It was still in Lake Forest. And to teach some classes there. So that's when I met Dave.
I love that, by the way, that you started as a program director.
Yeah.
Like we all start, we all started somewhere with that. That's great.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it was a great experience. I learned a lot at Ricardo's about the sales and management side of martial arts school. Ricardo had some pretty cool guys that were mentoring him back then. And anyways, so I learned the fundamentals there. And then when I moved to Irvine, to Orange County, I had this business background from my career in Brazil mixed with this small business idea of running a martial arts school. It's kind of like a perfect mix to be in that position as a PD and implement some of the basic customer service, sales, management systems. Marcio and Carlos, obviously, they were very supportive because they wanted, to see the school become more and more professional. And then eventually we started talking about this idea of Gracie Barra worldwide, which I never really attended to. I mean, as a student, I knew there was Gracie Barra schools all over the world. Not too many, but there were some already in the 5 continents, I think. And it was a cool thing. My friends that we grew up training together, there were some. But I didn't know there was actually an intention, a plan that was being developed to build a global brand. So once I was introduced to it, a couple months after I moved to Orange County, I was just, man, this is like the coolest thing. This is something that is worth putting our lives into. So it took off from there. There was a lot of different layers that came into place that I don't think we have time to go over today. But one thing stayed as a common denominator to it all. It was really about, from the beginning, it was really about having a positive impact in the world. And to create a vision that was going to be a positive one, that was going to do for others what Jiu-Jitsu has done for us. There was that core motivation that's still here, was there back then. And I think that that has morphed into a lot of other great things like our core values and, the idea of bringing Jiu-Jitsu for everyone, a franchise system, this multi-entity ecosystem that Gracie Barra has become. But I think those are just more sophisticated manifestations of a very simple, very raw, but very strong and powerful original idea that blended in with Jiu-Jitsu and became this thing that we call Gracie Barra now.
Yeah. One couple points I want to touch upon. Is it true that GB Princeton almost happened like 15, 20 years ago when you visited Ricardo and you were actually thinking about opening in New Jersey?
Yeah, so I was there at Ricardo's, obviously, to help him and learn, but the goal was to open my own school.
Yeah.
Right? And Ricardo was always very supportive about it. At that point in time, Gracie Barra wasn't formalized and structured the way it is now, but obviously I'm a Gracie Barra black belt, and it was very natural for me to want to represent my team the same way that everybody that comes under the lineage does now. There was no franchise, so Ricardo was pointing me to a few different communities, and I I wanted to go do my master's degree in Princeton, so I visited the campus a few times, and I remember going there to run and just to make myself familiar with the community. And I set my mind into this idea of opening a Gracie Barra school in Princeton. And that was my motivation for a few months while I was there. But then eventually this opportunity to move to California presented itself to me. My wife from Brazil, obviously, she loved the idea of being in a warmer climate and closer to the beach.
Good choice.
Had you done that, right now, literally, you would be under piles of snow.
Right. So I think it was a good choice after all.
It was an excellent choice. It gave me the opportunity to open GB Princeton, right?
So it's much better hands, that's for sure.
No, but had I given the choice, I would choose Orange County 10 out of 10 times. So well done.
It's got to be owned by Jersey Mike.
Yeah, exactly. One other thing I just want to touch upon, because I think this is such a really critical piece, is, hearing both of your stories, myself included, we all grew up in some kind of sports environment. Sports was a big part, martial arts sports, right? And that being shaped and in those formative years, I have to believe, like, in terms of the core values of what we're taught on the mats or on the field or, on the wrestling mats, like, that still follows us today, right? Is that, I have to assume this is just such a part of you, both of you. What have you taken from that? What are some of the things you still remember from your early years as, getting into Brazilian Jiu Jitsu at 12 or 13 years old? And you probably started wrestling young. Any thoughts on that?
Man, I think that sports was then, and it is even more now, one of the best outlets to develop good leaders.
Yep.
Men and women, it doesn't matter. Yep. If you have the luck of being under a good human as your coach, it doesn't have to be like a coach of world champions or Olympians, just a good, decent human being that understands that sports is about the education first and then about the performance, the character development first. Man, what an incredible vehicle it is to just build good humans. So I saw a lot of my friends from, we used to surf a lot back in Barra. It's an amazing place to grow up. And a lot of the people in surf is not an organized sport. It's more now, but it wasn't back then. And you see like a lot of people just straying away into paths that are so self-destructive, drugs and nightlife, partying, and then, jiu-jitsu happens to be there for us and something that we fell in love with. And we had the luck, Ricardo and I, to be under a decent human being, right? Carlos Gracie Jr. is more than a decent human being, He's just a great person. And to me, that's why I take that stance as a parent, with my daughters. Like, man, it doesn't have to be jiu-jitsu, but it has to be something that is going to keep you focused, it's going to encourage you to dream big and work hard to achieve something that you're going to have to work really hard to get there, and regardless if they get there or they don't get there, the process and the person that you become in pursuit of something great, that you can carry on to many things. So I don't think I would be able to do the work that I do for Gracie Barra now if it wasn't for those formative years that I had through sports. And I was lucky enough, obviously, that for me, it was through jiu-jitsu, so I understand very well the nuances of the sport, both from the technical and the philosophical standpoint, which is very helpful. So, yeah, I think sports is a great foundation for creating good citizens and, productive citizens. And that's one of the reasons why Jigoro Kano, the founder of judo, saw this. And, in Japan, they rolled judo out as one of their primary vehicles for physical education, and they wanted to create a population that was capable of bringing the country forward. So
yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, for me, and Professor Flavio just did a wonderful job on talking about leadership skills that can be developed through sports. For me, I was very lucky. I played two sports growing up. It was football and I wrestled, right? So to me, the football background was fantastic because I believe it to be one of the ultimate team sports, right? It taught me how to work on a team in which if everyone's doing their job correctly, then you find success.
Yeah.
But if 80% or 90% of the folks are doing their job correctly and one or two are not, everything falls apart. So it's this ultimate team sport, which I thought was fascinating. And then with wrestling, which to this day, I literally will have nightmares about the wrestling practices that I went through.
Wrestling has definitely got the hardest practice.
It's bad. It's really tough.
Yeah.
But for me personally, it really gave me that core value of being good with hard work and being very resilient, or trying to be as resilient as I can, and work ethic, really.
Yeah.
You know, it's such a grind every day alongside the weight cutting and all the things, and you're going to school. It's not easy. So those that go through it, I think, carry a lot of things forward that help them greatly in their
big time.
future.
I think about it all the time. And then I think back about how much my identity revolves around and how much of the things that I value when I see in leaders is all derivative of my time as a kid playing in sports and having great coaches and learning the most important life lessons. And so, biased or not, I think we all are, you can say in some ways, but I think in a good way, the role that jiu-jitsu can play in a child's life and even an adult's life, right, is so impactful. It's, you know, and it's almost like sometimes I'm like, can't you see this? Like, this is like, we all need, like, and again, it doesn't have to be jiu-jitsu. It could be soccer, swimming, or football, or whatever that is. But, and especially now more than ever, the role of sports in youth activities is so incredibly critical. If we want to continue to move forward as a nation, and, you know, here in the United States, we need great leaders now more than ever.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, so if it's okay with you guys, I'm going to switch to kind of getting back to the two of you getting together, becoming business partners. So GB Dana Point was that first entry into that.
Yep.
So 2014-ish was when that happened, right? So I know that you guys started the Arizona project sometime in 2015, I believe, right? So
the first school opened in 2015, but it was actually in 2014 where we formed this original partnership and started having ideas and developing this plan.
So walk me through that a little bit. I think is also helpful because, you know, GB is right now going through and continue to go through just massive growth. And there are, you know, there's so many territories, there's so many places in the country that are untouched still, right? They're, you know, I'm on the East Coast, right? Like there's so much on the East Coast, so many markets, so many things.
Lots of flags to plant.
But, you know, picking up and moving to a totally different city it is a little scary and it's a little challenging, I'm sure. So I'd love to hear what were some of the reasoning and thoughts and prompts that made you guys, you know, decide to pick up your stuff out of a beautiful Orange County. Like, you know, it's like, what? Like, no, don't get me wrong. You know, Arizona is beautiful too, but you know, you're leaving something familiar, something comfortable, something all that.
Family,
like,
friends,
all these things, headquarters.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear that.
I feel like you tell the story pretty well, Professor Flavio, and I can definitely chime in.
So I think a lot of the credit goes to Dave. So he comes in the picture. I am running two schools, San Clemente and Dana Point, alongside Professor Felipe Guedes and a great staff that we had there. Professor Charles that now runs the schools in Virginia. It was a great team there already. Dave was teaching classes. But I was transitioning into this corporate role. I understand now, looking back, what was happening, but my time was really, really taxed with many responsibilities piling up with the the seeds of GB Online, GB Events, GB Institute, and obviously Gracie Barra franchise systems, which now is called Gracie Barra Jiu Jitsu North America, they were already flourishing, right? And it was my responsibility. So my time to the schools was becoming more and more limited. So Dave and I, we used to do private lessons, like he said, for a long time. And we became very good friends. And he was very, very curious about Gracie Barra. The brand, the experience, the growth, the business model. Dave is a very smart business mind. And he always asks very good questions that, a lot of times after privates, we go have lunch, we start talking. And then one day, kind of like out of nowhere, Dave approached me, hey, would you be open, to a business partnership, And I was, at that point in time, I was already thinking about selling parts of Gracie Barra at that point. So I could have more of an operating partner. So it worked out very well, but it was very clear from the beginning. It's been more than 10 years now, Dave, so I might say something inaccurate here, but my memory is from the beginning, our conversation was not that we're going to have a partnership in one school, right? From the very beginning, you brought this idea. It was more than an idea. It felt to me like this confidence that what we had built was something so awesome that we had the duty to turn into something much bigger than what we were seeing back then, right?
Exactly. I just, my own personality. Part of that is, there's, certain levels of ambition, but for the right reasons, right? Yeah. It's, man, this does such amazing things for so many people in this community. Man, what if we bring it to as many people as we can in a great area that doesn't have as much access to great jiu-jitsu like Gracie Barra can provide.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, it's like when you have something, when you experience something so amazing, like the human thing to do is you want to share it. You want to pass it along to other people, right?
Missionary, right?
Yeah. So you want to go, I mean, so that tracks, of course, like that's like, you're so impacted by it. You're like, man, everyone needs to, and I want to be able to spread jujitsu.
Yeah. So we started having these types of conversations, but the big sticking point or the concern at that time was, can you do this?
Yeah, because there was no business model. That's the thing. Like the purpose was there, the ideal or the dream was there. It made perfect sense in our hearts, but in our minds, like, how do we do this? Because it's never been done before. Like this idea of moving into a new metropolitan area and to scale that fast, knowing full well that jiu-jitsu is a very unique business model that is heavily. It leans very heavily on relationships. The experience, the product are the relationships that you build there. And, I've been around jiu-jitsu for a long time. Every time you separate ownership from the main people actually creating the experience, a lot of times it's a difficult relationship to manage. In other words, every time the owner is not the main instructor, you have very high chances of having a fall off in that relationship at some point. Yeah. So anyways, there was a lot of question marks. We were in the dark. The only reference that I had was what Professor Marcio Feitosa did in Austin. He moved there. He opened a few schools. So he gave me some ideas, but it was what Dave was suggesting. It was at a whole nother level. Yeah. So we had to figure it out, and come up with a plan to move forward.
Well, you had, obviously, there was already some precedent of, students leaving Rio or leaving Brazil and opening up in America. But like you're saying, most of the time they were the head instructor, they were the owner, right? So, but to that point, nobody had attempted to create kind of a multi-school regional operation, which comes with a lot of other challenges from an infrastructure, from a training, from a dynamic of, like you said, the owner not being necessarily the head instructor. So a lot of new things happening at that point in time.
Exactly. Like Professor Flavio said, the vast majority at this point of school owners were owner operators.
Yeah.
right? And how do you build this thing in a way that you can have owners and operators and make it mutually beneficial for both, right? At that time, we don't have what we have today with this this big team and this infrastructure and the systems that we have today and a leadership model and all the things we do today. And maybe we'll talk more about that coming up. But back then we did have a north, even from the very beginning, without having any of these systems or infrastructure built. And that was, let's bring Gracie Barra to amazing communities so we can serve them well and bring jiu-jitsu to as many people as we can. That was number one. Number two, let's give opportunities to great people so that they can potentially make a great life for themselves, doing something that they're passionate about, jiu-jitsu, and of course, their strong connections and love for this organization, this team, Gracie Barra, right? And then the third major pillar was that we would become not just schools that operate, but that we would also be an educational organization in which we're not teaching you just your job of today, but we're going to try to give you the skills and resources that you need in order to have a career and grow and one day become partners, owners, and take the next steps in your life to do these great things for themselves and for their families.
Yeah. It definitely feel like that's a very meaningful thing to be able to know that not only you're trying to bring jiu-jitsu to, other parts of the country and help people transform their lives through jiu-jitsu, but also your team, your staff, and building something. And that obviously, that requires new skill. How do you cultivate talent? How do you create a model that works? Because one thing, and I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about it, right, is like you're saying, if you're not the head instructor, the commander, and we've probably seen it a lot where somebody builds up an academy, and there's somebody that is teaching the classes, and they're the one that's building more of the relationships than you are, and sometimes that person might say, "Hey, why can't I just go do this myself?" And they get up and they leave. So
it's not just sometimes; it's most times.
Most of the times,
right?
Thank you.
So that's the default condition of this relationship. It's that the tension builds between the head professor and the owner, right? And over time, that relationship falls apart. So when we designed the plan, we wanted to make sure that we gave every commander, I've had instructor that came to work with us, a very clear and exciting path to own their schools. Right? Yeah. And I'm not sure if that was the best way to do it, but we can look back 10 schools later, or more than 10 schools now, and say that we didn't lose one of our leaders to that reason.
Yeah.
It's a story. Look, there's still many battles to be fought, right? The schools are still running. There's still a lot of great things happening. There's still a lot of great things to happen in the future and many mountains to climb. But one thing I can point to as a success case is the fact that not one of our guys has left left all of the students and open next door.
Yeah.
And I cannot take all of the credit. Obviously, we were lucky that we had decent, great guys coming to work with us, but also there was a good system in place and there's good values, and people, some of the guys left and they went out want to open their own Gracie Barra school somewhere else, and we always supported them. But a lot of these guys are now owners of their schools, and man, what a remarkable story that is. It's the American dream happening through Gracie Barra.
Absolutely.
It's beautiful.
I know you don't want to take all the credit, but you should definitely take a significant amount of it. Of course, we created this system, this pathway for them to feel like we are better off together than we are apart. But of course, Professor Flavio, through his reputation, and through his mentorship, the reputation and all the things that he's done obviously made a lot of people excited about coming to work with us. But the continued guidance and mentorship, I think, has played a big key in them understanding that we are better together than apart.
Yeah.
And ultimately, whether the system was perfect or not, it's worked in that, like Professor Flavio said, everyone's still with us.
Yeah.
For the most part.
I think just looking back and thinking about it, and I'm in a similar scenario, certainly not as large as the Arizona project, but that distinction of that decision early on to say like, hey, we're gonna give these guys a path towards ownership. You guys will tell me that seems to be probably the most critical decision you made early on that ensured that you could scale to a certain degree.
I think it's the dream of everyone to have ownership. Ultimately, many want to have their own schools. So we've had a trajectory of guys who've been with us for a significant amount of time. They become partners. And now we're actually in a stage of the Arizona project where some of our leaders are now the full owners of their Gracie Barra schools.
Yeah. That's amazing. It's it's just an amazing accomplishment at the end of the day, and it just makes all the sense in the world. It is it's a sound thing, and I think it goes back to this idea that a lot of people, like I think a lot of us are, look, I don't want to say survival mode, but things are getting more expensive. Like it's hard to make a living, right? Mm-hmm. And so a lot of us get into this kind of general mindset of like scarcity and survival, right? Yeah. And so, but being able to step back and understand that if you want to go far, you need people around you and they need to be aligned and invested and everything else like that. And that's a core principle that I think is just so incredibly critical. But what I wanted to also ask you is, because again, and this is for, there are existing school owners that are watching this, that maybe have one or two schools or looking to expand and scale. And we all know that comes with a new set of skills that you need to acquire and things. And also just for any new school owner that's just starting, you guys have a lot of experience. You've been doing this you've been in jiu-jitsu for what, 33 years, right? You've been in it for a really long time as well.
Yeah, over 20 now, yeah.
Over 20 years. What are some other experiences or lessons you can share to with school owners that are, they're in the weeds. I'm a school owner as well. You're both school owners. Like we're in the weeds every day. We're putting out fires. We're also, trying to grow and do all these things. And there are 1,000,001 different challenges and curveballs that get thrown. I'd love to hear what are some of the ones that come to mind to you, and what were some of the ways that you eventually overcame those challenges, or paths that you found that eventually found some kind of resolution. And whether it was a constraint, you removed the constraint, or I'm sure we'll be here till next week if we talk about these. But what are some of the big ones that come to mind for you guys?
Read the E-Myth, Michael Gerber's Why Most Small Businesses Don't Work and What We Can Do About It. Obviously, we could approach it from so many different angles, but I don't have time to break down some of those core principles here. So just read that book. Yeah. It's going to be transformational. But it's especially important if anybody watching us here, and that's probably the case, you open a school as a Gracie Barra instructor. Because the instructor, the mindset, the way an instructors think, the logic, the operating system that we have in our minds as instructors makes us great instructors. And that is a required condition for a successful Gracie Barra school. But it's not sufficient. the reason why a lot of people struggle to build great schools, to make that transition from a good school to a great school, it's because they're not able to make the transition from being an instructor, a technician, to use Gerber's terminology, to being an entrepreneur. It's a different operating system. The way you think, it's like, you put new glasses and you start to see things that you didn't see before because it's a different logic. And obviously, a great instructor is the most important asset of a Gracie Barra school, a jiu-jitsu school, a martial arts school. Just like a great chef is the most important asset of a restaurant. However, it's not enough. It's not enough. And I think a lot of jiu-jitsu instructors struggle with that because they're so good at what they do. And they have so much passion for teaching that they have a really hard time wearing the white belt of a business owner as an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
It's hard for us to step outside of our comfort zone and be a white belt again. And then you have to learn finances, marketing, business leadership, sales, HR. But man, the mission requires us to do that. And actually I'll say this, it's much harder to become a great instructor than it is to become a great entrepreneur.
Yeah.
The issue is that a lot of people stop their professional development at the realm of being great instructors. They're franchisees, they have their name on a franchise agreement, they have their name on a lease, they have this massive opportunity of having a great impact in the community, and they spend the vast majority of their time studying jiu-jitsu techniques. Nothing against jiu-jitsu techniques. I love studying jiu-jitsu. I really do. But you signed up for something else when you open a business. You sign up to be an entrepreneur. You have to think as such. So anyways, I cannot do a better job than what Michael Gerber did. It's a classic in business reading. It's a very simple reading. It's going to change your life. If you haven't read it, go ahead and buy that book. Read it. You'll thank me later.
Yeah. I couldn't agree with you more on all of that. And the analogy that I use, and I've used this with, GB school owners, is I always thought, and you mentioned this to me the other day about using the analogy of jiu-jitsu in this, is like, and I say, it's like, you want to be good at jiu-jitsu. You understand you have to go to class multiple times per week, learn these techniques, and then practice those techniques. Know what you do well, what you don't do well, find the deficits, but it's a constant development. It's one of our core values as well. And then I'm like, so why are you not taking that same exact mindset with business?
Yes.
It's like one of these disconnects sometimes where I just don't. I think in some ways people, and this isn't just for a jiu-jitsu instructor, but I think a lot of people think they can just start a business and open a business and that they've got enough requisite logic and knowledge and intellect.
Yeah, because they assume that because they know how to teach jiu-jitsu, they know how to run a business that teaches jiu-jitsu, right? That's actually Gerber's adaptation to the reality of a Gracie Barra instructor that wants to become a successful school owner. They assume that because they have great knowledge of jiu-jitsu instruction, they run how to run a jiu-jitsu school. And that's what Gerber calls the fatal assumption. The moment you hold on to that false idea, you kill your business. Well, you don't kill your business because jiu-jitsu is so amazing. You still build a good business, but you're going to be making you're going to be at 150 students. You're going to have a really hard time breaking through 200 paying members and certainly bringing it to the level of 500, 700, even 1,000 members that some Gracie Barra schools are getting into now. So
That seems to be a big deficit. And I know that shifting for a minute. So like the takeaway certainly is one big thing that I'm getting from everything you guys are saying is that a Gracie Barra school owner, certainly a newer one that's maybe coming in, or even one that's been around for a while that is struggling to grow, is to really turn more of your time and energy and focus into building the skills and knowledge and how to actually run a business A to Z. This will, and will it come at the cost of your jiu-jitsu? I would probably say not so much, because
I don't think so. I think humans are capable of doing amazing things.
Yeah.
Right? We can do one thing without sacrificing another.
Yeah. Well, then
there's no question about that.
Well, it comes down to then also another skill as entrepreneurs, managing your time and your energy.
Yeah.
Right?
Something has to sacrifice, actually. You can do those two things, but then you probably have to give up
Last time on social
the
media,
social media, the Netflix,
that would do it.
going out.
The neither urgent nor important stuff
Exactly.
that we need to do in our lives.
Hey man, it's interesting because there was a moment in the 2000s when the professionalization of jiu-jitsu was taken off, in which people resisted the idea of making a business of jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, it's weird that they think for some reason like you
So
can't
is this
build a
so is
business.
this a business now? So it's not jiu-jitsu anymore?
Right.
This is a business now. We're not friends anymore.
Yeah, yeah.
Like I heard a lot of those things. And I was really confused because for me, business is not the goal. Business is an incredible tool for you to create a greater impact with whatever is it that you're good at and you believe in. If you run it as a for-profit business and you charge a fair price, you're gonna be able to have enough resources to be able to scale your business. In fact, I believe it's the only way to have sustainable impact in the world with anything, including jiu-jitsu. So there is this false idea still in some people's mind that they think that if you run it as a business, then it's not real jiu-jitsu. Nothing could be further from the truth. I'll say this, you can have real jiu-jitsu and not run it as a business, but it's not going to be around for a long time.
Right.
And whoever is running it's going to be miserable because they're working so hard, but they're not having the financial stability and the freedom that comes with financial stability to be able to continue to hone their talents and to be able to show up without having to worry about how they're going to pay their rent.
Yeah.
So
It's impossible to have an impact if your school is closed.
yes, absolutely.
Right. Exactly.
Yes, absolutely.
So, really appreciative of some of that feedback, and I think that's probably to simplify a lot of what we've even been talking about in terms of what made you. I know there's a lot of other things in terms of the Arizona project and the scale, and that's we can dig into the aspects of scaling from one school to 10 plus schools another day, another time. But to me, I think the biggest takeaway in all this is really a commitment to developing your business skills and understanding and taking it very seriously, which leads me to my next question. If it's okay, I want to kind of shift to now, let's put on a different hat for a minute here. In terms of you representing Gracie Barra, North America, Gracie Barra Jiu Jitsu North America as the COO, and I know you sit on the global board and do a lot of things. Knowing that is a major constraint in the growth of a business, and our, your goal here is to support, school owners in all facets of running a Brazilian Jiu Jitsu school. I'd love to hear what are some of the things you guys are working on. What is Gracie Barra doing as a franchisor, as an organization? What are you most focused on right now? What are you seeing, in the marketplace and across the country that is driving some of your decisions and some of the efforts and initiatives right now to continue to support and find the areas of trouble with the schools? And how are you responding to those things?
Go ahead.
It's like, you want to take it, you take it.
I want to, if you don't mind, Mike,
Yeah.
I just want to start by saying real quick, just on the last thing I want to say about Arizona. I hope that someone listening to this, watching this, it brings inspiration to them, that it is possible. We're not here to brag or say, oh, look what we've done. I hope that this serves as something that inspires folks to potentially think about doing something similar and emulate that. And anyone who actually has interest in doing something to that scale, we're here for you.
Yeah.
Right? Come to the campus, meet with us, reach out to me, have conversations with the team here, and we can talk much more about, how we built the team and the infrastructure and the systems that we built and some of the best practices in doing something like that. It's just, I'm really excited that we're having this conversation because I hope it brings inspiration for folks to do something similar and bring Gracie Barra to some amazing regions that are completely untouched, so we can plant those flags.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate that. And I think it is really important that people understand. And that's one of the benefits of having an organized team and structure, is that you have these resources. You can learn from your mistakes, all the mistakes which we all have to, right? You have to make these mistakes to learn, to develop, to pave the road for others to go down. So I agree. I think that's another thing that I don't see as often. I do see some, and it's funny, it's the ones that reach out and ask for more and to have that conversation. Those are the ones that are succeeding because they're curious. They're wanting to learn and understand these things, and they recognize that there are so many school owners and also yourselves at the corporate level, so to speak, that have done all this. They've gone through this. They have so much information, so much valuable information that will help these other school owners grow. And to your point, be able to live a life of meaning and purpose. And I think that's part of it too, like you said, from an inspiration. Is this hard work? Of course it's hard work. It's very hard work, but is it meaningful work? Is it, asking yourself, in doing all this, what you become in the process too, right? And I think it's hard to see that in the beginning, but hearing from so many people that have gone through that and seeing and hearing from them how incredibly grateful they are that they did take that step and they did do that at the end of the day. I think that's really, really important stuff.
Yeah. So going back to your question, Mike.
Yeah.
About Gracie Barra Jiu Jitsu North America specifically, because Professor Flavio, of course, can talk about all the various entities, but my current mission is to help lead the day-to-day operations of this amazing entity. It's grown significantly, and now within Gracie Barra Jiu Jitsu North America, there's multiple departments doing various things. We have school development and marketing and school success and safety, ethics, and compliance and legal and all these things. And that's all great. And it's an honor that I get to work with all these amazing department leaders so that we can bring as much as we possibly can to our community. But when I break it down, we have two main pillars, and I love to talk about this. So if you don't mind, indulge me for a second.
Yeah.
When I wake up in the morning, there's two things that I know that Gracie Barra Jiu Jitsu North America is responsible for. And it's pretty simple if I keep it down to these two. We have to be diligent and with our full hearts, bring as many tools and resources to our community as we can so that they can be as successful as possible, right? The support platform is just one way through our school success department, but all the departments, ultimately, we are working day in and day out to ensure that our community has what they need to be as successful as possible. Now, the question sometimes is the community engaging with these resources enough? That's another challenge that we have. So, But going back to these two things, it's support. And then, of course, I keep knocking this.
I know, it's all right.
It's to play our part in the overall vision of Master Carlos Gracie Jr. to put a Gracie Barra school in every city of the world. And we're going to play our part in North America to ensure that we can do that within the United States, Canada, and Mexico.
Yeah.
So let's bring Gracie Barra Jiu Jitsu to as many people as we can, because we know the world is a better place when people are training Jiu Jitsu. Mission 1. Mission 2, when these Gracie Barra schools are established, let's not just open a Gracie Barra school. Let's make sure these schools are strong. And not just serving students, but serving the owners and the staff of these schools well, so that they can find fulfillment in what they're doing, one, but live a great life through it as well.
What are some of the biggest challenges in those two things? And that makes sense, right? Is one is, hey, we talked about it before. I love this thing so much. It's changed our lives. We want to spread it as much as possible. So this is what Gracie Barra is doing on a global level, right? And here in North America, and that comes with a lot of challenges. And then on the other end of supporting all the school owners, across the country here. What are some of the biggest challenges that you've been encountering over that period of time? And what are some of the things that you're trying to do to adapt and overcome some of those challenges? Because there's always going to be problems. There's always going to be challenges in doing this, especially as you continue to grow, right? There's the need for structure, like structure. I think a lot of people don't get that sometimes. They're like, oh, Gracie Barra, like uniforms and this and that and policies. I'm like, have you ever grown a business like beyond one location? Do you understand the importance of structure and systems and creating freedom and opportunities? But yeah, I just love to what are some of the things that, you've just kind of been encountering, and what are the ways that you guys are trying to solve those things?
Yeah. So on the pillar of growing Gracie Barra within North America, there's 100% no shortage by any means of great territories to develop Gracie Barra schools in. There's typically not a shortage of the required capital that's needed. If you really want to make this happen, you can find access to capital, whether it's through your own savings or through potential partnerships and investors or going to a bank for a loan. However, the one thing that we've encountered is that there's quite a few people that want to open up Gracie Barra schools, but they don't have the instructor.
Yeah,
that's oftentimes the barrier to entry. And we're working on this right now. Professor Flavio, you want to talk a little bit about some of what we're trying to do as far as the Gracie Barra staffing that we want to do to make sure that we can match people that really want to open up a Gracie Barra school but may not have the team to do it with?
Yeah, so this has been obviously a bottleneck for Jiu-Jitsu for a long time, for the growth of Jiu-Jitsu in North America for a long time. And I would say in other places as well, in Europe and in most of the big markets around the world. So part of it's gonna solve itself over time as Jiu-Jitsu becomes more mature and you have more and more people within the U.S. and Canada and Europe going through the rankings and eventually getting to a position to open their own schools. But anyways, it's the reality now, and it's been for the last few years. And obviously you have this enormous amount of talents that is coming up in the organization. You have a lot of talent in Brazil because the sport started there, and it's been there for a long time. And then you have on the other side this great opportunities for people to work and make a living as jiu-jitsu instructors and eventually become school owners. So anyways, what we are developing is our own staffing agency. And I don't know if that's the best definition, but it's a platform that matches talents with career opportunities all over the world, right? So it empowers our school owners to create job posts, and then empowers our instructors to create professional profiles.
Yeah.
And the platform matches.
Yeah.
You know, if I go there as an instructor and I create a profile, I can choose, hey, I'm interested in learning more about job opportunities in the U.S. and in I don't know, like in Argentina and Portugal. You can choose where you're interested to go within your country or outside of your country, and the system then does a match, and that allows for a conversation to start. And we're hopeful that with some guidance from our team in the Gracie Barra Institute, that match is going to turn into the actual career opportunity, and that will help fuel the growth and reduce some of that bottleneck that Dave is referencing.
So you want to know about some of the exciting things that are happening? That's something
Yeah.
obviously we're very excited about. Again, we have over probably 5,000 territories within North America that have potential to be developed. I think there's over 5,000, territories that have over 100,000 people. And there's a lot of people that want to be Gracie Barra school owners.
Yeah.
They have access to what they need to make that happen, except sometimes that instructor, right, to make it happen. So yeah, we're very excited about that. Now on the school success side of things, the support component of North America, we are always thinking about ways in which we can bring innovation and the tools to our community so that they can, like I said before, be as successful as possible and perform and manage and operate their schools at a high level, right? So we're always thinking about what can we create? What current tool do we have that we can make better?
Yep.
Or what type of resource should we create from scratch that our community truly needs in order to level up?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So we're always thinking about that. One thing that I'm very excited about now, because sometimes what happens is we'll create this tool or this resource, whatever it is, but we don't get the type of adoption, implementation, or engagement with it that we would like. And it has more to do with us than it has to do with the actual school owner, because sometimes it's just, maybe it's not marketed properly or communicated well. So one thing that we're working on right now is a new vision for our regional leadership model, which we believe, when fully implemented and it's being executed upon, is going to really bridge the gap between the entities within North America and the schools. So I'm not going to go into all the details right now of what this new leadership model is, but we're truly developing a really strong two-way bridge, because a true bridge goes in both directions.
Yeah.
Right?
Of course.
So when the leadership model is working, all the initiatives, all the resources that we have will truly finally get to the school owners, and it's our sincere hope that they're going to benefit from this, because they're going to actually know much more about this and the best ways to implement these tools or resources into their schools.
Yeah.
Right. But the bridge is going to work both ways. So the schools are going to say, hey, we're here on the ground. This is what we need. This is great, what you have over here, but we need more of this. And that information is going to flow back through leadership, back to the entities, and we'll be able to assess the feedback that we're getting, and I think do an even better job of creating not just tools, but the right ones that make the most sense, that are going to have the most impact on our schools.
Yeah.
So this new leadership model is going to be a huge help in supporting our community and really enhance the communication that's going to go both ways.
Yeah. So what I'm definitely hearing, and it sounds amazing, is obviously I think, and we see this even with school owners, the biggest constraint is, and like you said, is the head instructor and making sure that. So that's something that, you can't fake. Black belts don't grow on trees, so to speak. Yeah. And so that does take time and some, not sophistication, but being able to, like you said, connect them and stuff like that. I think that's amazing. But finding ways, and I think this is where, I know we didn't talk about it a lot, but being able to bring the specific lessons on the skills needed from a business perspective, from an instructor perspective, right? That's a big part of what the Institute is doing to try to give the school owners and their instructors and their staff all the tools and resources needed that they can build the competency and skills. And the other piece I think is incredibly important, like you said, is communication, is being able to create, a much stronger communication flow both ways that enables, right? Because that is, I'm sure, is one of the other things that, a lot of organizations as they grow, and look, these are all growing pains, I can only assume, right? As GB, and it wasn't that long ago, right? In the grand scheme of our lifetime, like, when you started, there was one school, and there's now 1,100, 1,200 schools. I mean,
we just crossed 1,250.
Oh my God. Yeah. So amazing in that understanding those are, and I think it's good for people to understand what you're seeing and what you're working on all the time, because, without knowing, you're just like, oh, what are these guys doing? They're like, no, these are I know, like, these are the real challenges in an organization that's trying to scale with quality. Right. And that's a really, really important word, I think, is because you could just try and scale something. And if you're not really like focused on like keeping the quality of the experience throughout, you're gonna run into some issues.
Yeah, and I was just pointing to one thing.
Yeah.
That I think to me it's hugely impactful, and we're very excited about it. But we're working on so many things right now.
Yeah.
And I don't want to go through the whole list, but we're very excited about what's going to be happening with Baja Fit in the future. As an example, we're very excited about the GB Campus initiatives, bringing folks here and what we're going to be doing with our onboarding and all these. There's so many things happening day in and day out, but we only have so much time.
Of course,
but there's a lot. If you look at the list, actually, if you walk into my office, I have a list on my board. Just so every day I can look at it, and keep my mind attached to it, so I don't get too pigeonholed in one thing or the other.
Yeah.
It's a long one.
Yeah, I'm sure
it's a long one. Yeah.
And I want to, and I appreciate you guys spending the time. I know you're busy, and I know how hard it was just to get you to sit down. But I want to wrap up by asking you, Professor Flavio, because obviously your perspective on everything from the very beginning, being a teenager in this organization to now being part of the global board, I'd love to get some of your thoughts as well on your priorities and what you are thinking about from that perspective. And if you can explain very briefly what the dynamic is of the global board and what your responsibilities are in terms of Gracie Barra from
I thought he was going to say you're going from a teenager to a boomer or
a boomer.
But you're saying a more seasoned, refined global board member.
That's the thing. Dave and I like to talk about now. We're both.
He's always calling me boomer and
I'm boomer now. Of course, I'm the boomer too. Anyway,
look, there's some very important trends that influence the overall strategy of how Gracie Barra is evolving. I think a few things that is important for us to pay attention to when we look ahead as, members of the jiu-jitsu industry and important members of the jiu-jitsu industry. One is that the demand for jiu-jitsu is going to continue to grow over time, right? Assuming that there is no major apocalypse, right, based on geopolitics, whatever that is, the demand for jiu-jitsu is going to continue to grow over time, and it's only accelerating. Like, we're seeing very strong signs that the sport is becoming more popular, is going to continue to become more popular at many different levels of society all over the world. In communities in affluent communities, I'll put it that way, because then you have economical constraints in low-income communities. That's a whole nother discussion that I'm not going to get into. Okay, so that's happening, and it's going to continue to happen. So that's great. But what other thing that is happening is that jiu-jitsu is becoming a commodity. Every day, there's more black belts that are pumped out of jiu-jitsu schools, great black belts, and they're perfectly capable of teaching, and they'll go on to pursue their dream of opening jiu-jitsu school. So demand is growing, but so is supply, right? I don't think supply is keeping up with demand. So obviously that creates an opportunity for us to be able to continue to bring great jiu-jitsu to communities and to be able to charge, a fair price for it, which is great because then you can build a great business, improve the students' experience, so on and so forth. But my point is that for Gracie Barra schools or any jiu-jitsu school to continue to thrive in this landscape, we have to be able to provide a better and better experience to our students. And as Gracie Barra schools, we are positioned in a very unique way in which we can provide experiences that no other jiu-jitsu schools can provide. So the Gracie Barra schools need to learn how to work closer with the Gracie Barra entities to leverage their competitive advantage by integrating their experience with the tools that the Gracie Barra entities provide. So that's the scenario that we are walking in right now. Okay? So to bring in simple terms to a jiu-jitsu school and a Gracie Barra school, if you think you have competition now, you're going to look back in 5 years and you're going to see that you have no competition now. Because in 5 years, you're probably going to have 10, 20, 30, if not more, other jiu-jitsu schools within 15 minutes drive from your school. So how do you thrive on that environment? You have to be the premium jiu-jitsu school in town. Then how do you do that then? Well, there's many ways to do that. But one of the best ways to do that as a Gracie Barra franchisee is to work closer with the Gracie Barra entities. Let's get into the specifics. Very few people know this. Gracie Barra Online is coming up with a program that allows Gracie Barra schools to infuse digital training into the in-person training that they're receiving in their school, 100% in line with the techniques that they're studying every single week. No other jiu-jitsu school can do that at the capacity that Gracie Barra school owners can. Why? Because we have this massive library of very well taught curriculums that aligns with what we teach at the schools. And that's having an impact on students' retention because it's having a positive impact in students' experience in a day and age in which people are spending more and more time on their phones. So they're more willing to continue their training using their phones or using their computer. That's just one example. Another one, Gracie Barra Jiu North America is going to be rolling out this year a new updated version of how Gracie Barra schools should look and feel. It's a whole new level of interior design, interior branding, so we can create an even more premium experience. So once people enter a Gracie Barra school, they have this elevating experience of connection with their team, with their instructors, but with the legacy of Jiu-Jitsu in Gracie Barra, right? Another great example is the work that Gracie Barra Jiu-Jitsu North America is doing to be able to have regionalized versions of LeaderCon. So we can build leadership development and skill development to most regions around the country. Another great example is the work that GBWare is doing to turn pro shops that are they're underperforming pro shops into very profitable, very strong revenue generating opportunities within Gracie Barra schools. So all of the entities are designing products and services to be able to be plugged into Gracie Barra schools to make these schools the premium jiu-jitsu school in their communities. Obviously, they already have the premium brand, which is the Gracie Barra brand. So when I look into the future, I'm obviously very optimistic. There's never been a better time to be a school owner ever. When I think about how Helio and Carlos did it, and man, we have no reason to complain in 2026 when we remember what Helio, Carlson, and Carlos Gracie Jr. had to do to survive as jiu-jitsu instructors. We are blessed beyond any measurement. And now with these tools, they're being rolled out as we speak, man, I have no doubt that the school owners who make the effort to work closer with the Gracie Barra entities, they will continue to thrive into the future. And we're going to have more and more examples of these schools that are making more than $1 million per year. And look, money should never be the goal, but it's a good measurement of the impact and the strength that these schools have as businesses, you know. And lastly, to answer your question, Mike, about the global board, it's an institutional evolution within Gracie Barra. So you have our founder, you have the global board, which is built for now by myself, Professor Márcio Feitosa, and Marco Joca. Our work is to oversee the work of all of the Gracie Barra entities and to ensure that the work that they are doing is actually making a difference in the lives and in the businesses of our franchisees, and to make sure that the work is actually having a positive impact in the experience that our students have at the end of the day. So it's great work. It's a privilege to do that. And more specifically, I try to do the best that I can in bringing to the board some of the challenges and opportunities that we see at each one of the entities. So I work closely with Dave to understand what's happening in North America, and I bring it to the board. So I am this in-between, this conduit between the global board and many of the key executives that run the entities. And it's really a great position to be in because I get to see a lot, to understand a lot, and to contribute a lot. So.
What I love about all of that, and thank you for explaining that, is what's also eye-opening is that the global board consists of 3 kids that started at the original Gracie Barra, you know, and now we're all grown adults, but you know, a family men, you know. But what I think is also important, and you mentioned this before, and look, I have a business background as well. I've been doing it for 20 plus years. I've worked with people and organizations in the 9-figure realms, right? And understanding, you said something before that I thought right away is it's a blue ocean strategy. It's like when you think of competitive advantage and understanding, and again, maybe not everybody understands this because, you know, they start in as just an instructor, not a business owner, is what is your product? And our product is the experience. And what I heard from you is we are fanatically focused on understanding every component that makes up an amazing experience inside of our academy.
That's exactly
right. And
right.
we are focused on improving that and making that as best as humanly possible, because that is what's going to differentiate you at the end of the day. And not only that, the stuff that's being rolled out in GB Jiu Jitsu North America and the other entities are coming from people that have been doing this their whole lives and see this. And not only have been doing that for their whole lives for the most part, but have done it very well, have scaled businesses. And so again, there's proof in concept about that, or has, you know, built schools at 500, 600, 700, 800, 900 students at the end of the day. So the information, what I appreciate is the information that's coming out, that we're rolling out or doing these things, is not just this happenstance thing. Oh, we think this is going to work. These are proven concepts. These are proven business strategies or principles that we know, when implemented properly, will set you apart from the school down the road. And to your point, like even where I am in New Jersey, when I started, you know, my schools 8 years ago, man, there's 3 or 4 schools right around now in my area, you know, and like you said, in 5 years from now, there's going to be another 5 or 10 schools. So now more than ever, to be able to adopt all these things and have I think what's important is to have the belief, to know, and I think that might be one of the keys, is to know that putting these things in place is going to separate you from other people. And I do think that is probably a challenge that you see sometimes if somebody comes in, and you would think they want to be able to come into a franchise and listen and do everything you tell them to do, but that doesn't always happen because humans are humans, right? Yeah. But I think that makes a ton of sense. And I think it is exactly where we need to be in understanding what is the core of your business, your value proposition, and how do you get into the weeds and identify all the things that lead towards creating an amazing experience at the end of the day. Exactly.
I'll if you don't mind, I'll say this last piece here. You touched on some of the folks that want to become Gracie Barra school owners. And one of the reasons why, they appreciate the franchise model, it's obviously turnkey, right? You come in, you have these great systems and infrastructure built out for you, but humans are interesting, right? They say, oh, I like these systems, but not so much that. So I'm going to kind of, and then sometimes they come back and say, well, why does Gracie Barra, insist that we do this or that, or some of these standards or some of these policies? I think sometimes there's a misconception that these policies or standards are created just because,
exactly.
we just want to make them, and there's some type of authoritarian reason behind it, which could not be farther from the truth. The reason why these policies, these standards are made is because we believe that this is what is going to give you that competitive advantage, give you the leg up. An armbar is an armbar at the end of the day, right? What gives us the competitive advantage? These are the things.
Well, it's not that, and it's not that you just believe that, you know it because you guys have seen it.
There's a lot of testing and trial and
Right,
error.
exactly. That's what I'm saying. It's not
happened.
just a belief. It's a belief because you've gone through, what it looks like when you don't do those things, right? And you don't. So it's like it's not just like this theoretical thing. These are things that have been done
Tested.
for years and tested for a long period of time. So it's like, trust the process. If you're going to come into this thing, like this is a relationship where you got to trust us. We're going to trust you. We're going to form this relationship together and grow together. At the end
And
of the
there's
day.
still plenty of room for the individual to be
absolutely.
an individual and
Yeah.
be creative and
Yeah.
do their things. But obviously, when you're a part of a team, part of an organization, there's things that we do together and that we align on.
Yeah.
And again, through a lot of innovation, a lot of testing and analysis, these are things that are going to allow you to maintain that competitive advantage. So let's keep going with it.
Cool. Any final thoughts? Anything else?
Well, I'm very grateful for the opportunity to share our story and give our community some perspective into the work that we do behind the curtains. Obviously, we're very passionate about the work that we do. And I hope that people that say this find an even greater sense of pride on being part of this incredible organization. This year, Gracie Barra is celebrating 40 years. This is epic from so many different levels. But I'm really hopeful that as we celebrate this, that we celebrate this as an accomplishment of all of us. Obviously, Master Carlos, our founder, takes a lot of credit, and he should. The credit belongs to all of us. Gracie Barra exists where you are because of you as a franchisee, right? You are the link, you are the connection. So I hope that the sense of accomplishment, a sense of pride is felt, because we do this with a lot of logic and a lot of strategic thinking, but we do this with our hearts. We put our hearts and our lives into this, and it's no surprise that it's working for so many people. So thank you, Mike, for setting this up and giving us the opportunity to share a little bit of what we do.
Yeah, I appreciate, and we did it. We got through the first one. I love it. I want to also just say thank you to the two of you, and for being great leaders, and I know this is your life. I know as entrepreneurs, you guys have been entrepreneurs for a long time. We eat, sleep, and breathe jiu-jitsu, and at the end of the day, not just jiu-jitsu, but building this amazing organization through jiu-jitsu and being able to change lives, both students, instructors, school owners, and all that. So I know you guys are very busy people. You got to get back to work right now, but I want to say thank you again. Thanks for being on.
Thank you, Professor Mike. Great to be here with you, man. And just want to say this real quick. Man, you've been a great addition to the team.
Appreciate that.
For those that are watching, Professor Mike now is a part of the Gracie Barra Jiu Jitsu North America team, and also helping us with GB Arizona as well. Man, it's amazing to have you. Appreciate the opportunity today.